You've probably already heard about it. The ruined wedding, the 75,000, the house I was supposedly buying for my daughter and her new husband, the dramatic exit that went viral in our small social circle. But you haven't heard my side. You haven't heard about the 32 years before that moment, or the promise I made to my wife as she lay dying in that hospital bed in San Diego. Let me start there. Let me start with Margaret. I met Margaret when I was 19 at a garage in El Cajon, where I just started as an apprentice mechanic. She brought in her father's Chevy pickup, and I changed the oil. She had this way of looking at you like she could see straight through to who you really were, not just what you appeared to be. We were married within a year. I was 20, she was 21, and everyone said we were too young. Maybe we were, but we had 33 good years together before the cancer took her. Our daughter Claire was born when I was 23. By then, I'd worked my way up to head mechanic at the shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Margaret worked as a receptionist at a dental office. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Claire had everything she needed and most of what she wanted. We lived in a small 3-bedroom house in Oceanside. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Margaret died 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to gone. Near the end, when she could barely speak above a whisper, she took my hand. "Promise me something, David," she said. "Make sure Claire has a beautiful wedding. She's always dreamed about it since she was little. Don't let her skimp on it because of money. Give her that day. Promise me." I promised. Of course, I promised. After Margaret died, I threw myself into work. The house felt too quiet. I started taking extra shifts, working Saturdays, doing side jobs on Sundays. People knew I was good, reliable. Word spread. My little savings account started growing, not fast but steady. I had a goal now. Claire was dating James by then, and I could see where it was heading. James came from money. Real money. His father owned a commercial real estate development company in La Jolla. They lived in one of those houses on the cliff overlooking the ocean, the kind you see in magazines. His mother, Patricia, was one of those women who lunched at country clubs and served on charity boards. She always had perfect hair and wore those designer outfits with the labels still somehow visible. I met them for the first time at a restaurant in Del Mar that James chose. I showed up in my good slacks and the nice button-down shirt Margaret had bought me for Christmas before she got sick. I'd washed the grease from under my fingernails as best I could, but you can never really get it all out when you've been a mechanic for 40 years. Patricia looked at my hands when I shook hers. Just a glance, but I caught it. James's father, Robert, was cordial enough. The conversation was polite but strained. They asked about my work, and when I said I was a mechanic, Patricia's smile got a little tighter. "How practical," she said. Claire seemed nervous that night, laughing too loud at James' jokes, touching his arm constantly. She barely looked at me. Afterward, in the parking lot, she said, "You could have worn something nicer, Dad." I looked down at my shirt. "This is my nice shirt, sweetheart. Your mother picked it out." "I know," but she trailed off. "Never mind. Thanks for coming." That should have been my first clue. James proposed 6 months ago at some fancy restaurant in San Diego. Claire called me crying happy tears. "We're getting married, Dad. Can you believe it?" "I can believe it." I said, "He's a lucky man. We're thinking spring wedding, maybe April." "Oh, Dad, it's going to be so beautiful. Your mother would be so proud." I said, and I meant what I promised her. "You're going to have the wedding of your dreams." There was a pause. "Dad, you don't have to." "I want to." I said, "I promised your mother, and I'm promising you." The wedding planning started immediately. Claire wanted to have it at the Fairmont Grand Del Mar, this 5-star resort up in the hills. I looked up the venue cost and nearly choked. But I'd made a promise. I met with the wedding planner, a woman named Veronica, who wore sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She had a tablet full of options, each more expensive than the last. For a spring wedding at the Fairmont, Veronica said, "We're looking at approximately $45,000 for the venue, catering, and basic service. That's for 150 guests." I swallowed hard. "And that includes venue rental, tables, chairs, basic linens, dinner service, champagne toast, and the coordination fee. Florals are extra. Photography is extra. Music is extra. The dress, of course, is extra. Of course. Bar service." I asked Premium Open Bar would add another 8,000. The numbers kept climbing. Flowers, 6 of 500. Photographer, 4,200. Videographer, 3 of 800. String quartet for the ceremony, Thursdayers, 200. Band for the reception, 5 of 500. Claire's dress, 3 to 200. Invitations, 800. I did the math in my head. We were approaching 80,000. And the wedding gift. Claire said one afternoon when we were meeting with the planner. She wasn't looking at me, just studying her phone. James and I have been looking at houses in Encinitas. There's this perfect craftsman bungalow, 3 bedrooms. His parents are helping with half the down payment, and we were hoping. She finally looked up at me. We were hoping you might help with the other half. It would be 45,000. My heart sank. The wedding was already stretching my savings to the breaking point. I'd taken out a small loan to cover the difference, but another 45,000. Claire, honey, it's okay, she said quickly, her face wreathing. It's fine. I shouldn't have asked. His parents can probably just cover it all. No, wait, I said. Let me look at my numbers. Let me see what I can do. I took a second loan against the house. The house Margaret and I had paid off together. The house where Claire had grown up, where we'd measured her height on the doorframe every birthday, where Margaret had taught her to bake chocolate chip cookies. I did it for the promise. I did it because it's what Margaret would have wanted. I did it because Claire was my only child, my daughter, the little girl who used to sit on my shoulders and make me carry her around the yard pretending she was flying. But something was changing. Over the next few months, Claire's visits became less frequent. When we did talk, she seemed distracted. Always checking her phone, she started referring to James's family more and more. Patricia thinks we should do the calligraphy on the invitations. Robert suggested we honeymoon in Tuscany. James wants his fraternity brothers at the head table. And then there was the day I stopped by the house she was renting with James. I'd finished a break job early and thought I'd surprise her. I knocked, and she opened the door looking flustered. Dad, what are you doing here? Just wanted to see you, honey. Haven't talked in a while. She stepped outside, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. This isn't a great time. We have James's parents inside and we're going over wedding details. Oh, I'd like to. No, she said it too sharply, then tried to soften it with a smile. We're really busy and there's really not room. And she looked back toward the house. Maybe another time. I stood there on the porch of a house I was helping to pay for, looking at my daughter who didn't want me to come inside. Sure, I said. Another time. The wedding was scheduled for April 15th, a Saturday. I picked up my tuxedo from the rental place on Thursday. It wasn't anything fancy, just a basic black tux, but I thought I looked decent. I tried it on that night in my bedroom, standing in front of the mirror. Margaret's photo was on the dresser. Her smile captured forever at age 51 before the cancer. Well, Maggie, I said to the photo, we're doing it. We're giving our girl the wedding you wanted. The morning of the wedding, I was up at 5000, couldn't sleep. I drove to the shop and did some paperwork, then went home and got ready. The ceremony started at 4000, so I was supposed to be there by 3000. I arrived at 2045. The Fairmont was as beautiful as advertised. The wedding was set up in their garden terrace overlooking a valley of oak trees. Everything was white and gold and elegant, roses everywhere. The kind of wedding that gets featured in magazines. I found Claire in the bridal suite, surrounded by bridesmaids and the hairstylist and makeup artist. She looked beautiful in her dress. For a moment, she looked exactly like Margaret on our wedding day. Hey, sweetheart, I said from the doorway. She turned and saw me. Her face lit up. Dad, she came over and hugged me carefully, mindful of her makeup and dress. You look so handsome. You look just like your mother, I said, my voice thick. Her eyes got teary. Don't make me cry. You'll ruin my makeup. Sorry, I laughed. She'd be so proud. I know, Claire whispered. Then she pulled back. Okay, I need to finish getting ready. The photographer wants some shots before the ceremony. I'll get out of your hair, I said. I love you, Claire. Love you too, Dad. I walked back down to the garden area. Guests were starting to arrive, milling around with cocktails. I recognized some of Claire's friends from high school and college. I saw James's family, Patricia in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my car, Robert in a custom suit. I took a seat in the third row, aisle seat. I figured Claire would want me close to the front, but not too obvious. I watched the guests come in. James's side filled up the first several rows quickly. His family, his friends, people from his father's company. All of them looked like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog. Then I overheard it. Two women seated in the row behind me, both with that same polished look as Patricia. "It's absolutely stunning," one of them said. "Patricia told me they spared no expense." "Well, with Robert's portfolio, I'd imagine they could afford it." The other one replied, "I heard they covered everything. The venue, the honeymoon in Tuscany, even the down payment on the kids' new house. How generous." I sat there, my hands gripping the sides of my chair. My first instinct was to turn around and correct them, but I stopped myself. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe Patricia had gotten confused. Or, "Excuse me, sir." A young man in a suit approached me, one of James's groomsmen. I recognized him from photos. "I'm sorry, but this row is reserved for family." I looked at him. "I am family. I'm Claire's father." His face changed, a flicker of confusion, then awkwardness. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize." "I thought you were." He trailed off. "Never mind. Sorry to bother you." He hurried away. I sat there, my stomach turning. The ceremony started at 4 sharp. It was beautiful. Claire walked down the aisle, escorted by Robert. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew the tradition was often for the father to walk the bride, but Claire had mentioned weeks ago that since James's father was hosting her word, which I'd noted but not challenged, he'd offered to do the honor. She asked if I minded. I'd said no. Of course not. Whatever made her happy. But sitting there watching Robert walk my daughter down the aisle, my daughter whose diapers I'd changed, and whose fevers I'd sweed through, and whose tears I'd dried, I felt something break inside me. The ceremony was lovely. They said their vows. They kissed. Everyone clapped. My eyes were wet, but I told myself it was just emotion from seeing my daughter get married. The reception started at 50. The tables were set up inside the ballroom, decorated with elaborate centerpieces. I found my name card at a table near the back. Not the head table, not even one of the front tables. Table 18 near the kitchen doors. I sat down. The other people at my table were nice enough. One was a distant cousin of James's. Another was someone from his father's company. The others I didn't know. No one from my side. No one who knew me or Margaret or our story. The head table was elevated on a small platform. Claire and James in the middle. Then his parents. His best man, her maid of honor. That was it. Dinner was served. It was delicious, I'm sure. But I barely tasted it. I watched Claire up at that head table, laughing and talking with James's family, and I felt like I was watching a stranger. After dinner, the toast started. James's best man gave a funny speech about college shenanigans. The maid of honor, Claire's college roommate, told a sweet story about how Claire knew James was the one. Then Robert stood up. "I just want to say a few words," he began, his voice carrying through the room with practiced ease. "James and Claire, seeing you two together brings such joy to Patricia and me. When James first told us about Claire, I knew she was special. And over these past 2 years, she's truly become a part of our family." He went on talking about their future, about the house they'd be moving into, about how proud he was to welcome Claire into the family. He talked about values and legacy, and building a life together. "And I'm so grateful that we could help make this day special for them," he concluded. "Patricia and I are thrilled to have contributed to this celebration and to their future." To Claire and James. Everyone raised their glasses. To Claire and James, I raised mine too, automatically, but my hand was shaking. "Contributed," he said. Contributed like he'd helped out. Kicked in some cash. Not like he'd taken credit for it, I told myself. Just contributed. But then I heard it again. The murmur of conversation around me. "They're such generous people, the Hammonds. Did you see the band they hired? That's the 15,000 band. Patricia was telling me about the flowers alone. Do I $10,000 easily?" I looked around at all these people, all thinking that Robert and Patricia Hammond had paid for this wedding. And I looked up at the head table at Claire, who was looking down at her plate, not meeting anyone's eyes. She knew. The band started playing. James and Claire did their first dance. Then Claire danced with Robert. "Vatherotter dance," the band leader announced. I sat at table 18 and watched another man dance with my daughter at her wedding. After the dance, people started moving around, mingling. I got up thinking I'd find Claire, maybe get a moment with her, but everywhere I turned, people were congratulating the Hammonds. Patricia was holding court near the bar, accepting compliments on the wonderful event she'd put together. I was standing near the edge of the room when I heard Claire's voice. She was talking to a group of James' friends, and I was just around the corner, out of sight. "So, is your dad here?" one of them asked. There was a pause. My heart stopped. Yes, Claire said. "He's around somewhere. I haven't met him yet." "Where is he?" Another pause. Longer this time. I think he's actually not feeling well. He might have left early." Claire's voice was tight, strained. "Oh no, is he okay?" Yeah, he's fine. Just he works a lot, long hours. I think he was tired." "What does he do?" He works at a garage." "He's a mechanic." The way she said it, like it was something embarrassing. Like it was something she needed to explain away. "Oh, that's cool." One of the friends said, genuine. "My uncle owns an auto shop. It's tough work." "Yeah," Claire said quickly. "Anyway, let's go find the photo booth." They moved away, their laughter fading. I stood there frozen. My daughter had just lied about me leaving. My daughter was ashamed of what I did for a living. My daughter, for whom I had worked every Saturday for 2 years, whom I had taken loans for, whom I had kept a promise to her dying mother for. I should have left then. I should have walked out quietly and let them have their perfect fantasy. But I couldn't move. I was stuck there, memories flooding through me. Claire at 7 bringing me cookies at the shop while I worked on Mrs. Henderson's book. Claire at 13 crying because some kids at school made fun of her grease monkey dad, and me holding her, telling her that hard work was nothing to be ashamed of. Claire at 17 hugging me tight when I gave her the keys to the used Honda I'd fixed up for her birthday. Claire at 20 calling from college saying, "I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything you do for me." When had that changed? When had I become someone to hide? I looked around the room. The band was setting up for the next song. People were laughing, dancing, drinking, living in this beautiful illusion. And then I saw it, the microphone stand off to the side of the band setup, just sitting there. I thought about Margaret. I thought about her lying in that hospital bed making me promise. I thought about the 32 years I'd raised Claire, mostly on my own after Margaret died. I thought about the second mortgage on my house. I thought about the $75,000 that I'd somehow scraped together through loans and savings and extra shifts and skipped meals. I thought about Claire telling her friends I'd left early because I was just a tired mechanic. My hands were trembling as I walked toward that microphone. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Part of me was screaming to stop, to not make a scene, to not ruin Claire's day. But another part of me, the part that had promised Margaret, the part that had worked 40 years in garages to provide for my family, the part that was tired of being erased, that part kept walking. I picked up the microphone. The band noticed and stopped playing. The room gradually went quiet. People turned to look. Claire's face went white. "Dad," she said, her voice small. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw fear in her eyes, not surprise, fear. She'd known this moment might come. Everyone," I said. My voice was shaking, but it carried through the room. "I'm David, Claire's father. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting." A ripple went through the crowd. Some people looked confused. Others who'd been talking to the Hammonds looked very confused. "I just want to say a few words, if that's okay." I looked at Claire. She was frozen, her hand gripping James's arm. "I know this isn't traditionally when the father speaks, but I think it's important." Patricia Hammond was making her way toward me, her face tight. "Sir, I don't think 32 years ago," I continued, my voice getting stronger. "My wife Margaret and I brought Claire into this world. We were young. We didn't have much money, but we had love. So much love." I saw some people in the crowd nodding, getting a little teary. They thought this was going to be a sweet father of the bride speech. Margaret worked at a dental office. I've been a mechanic my whole life. We weren't fancy people. We drove old cars and lived in a modest house and took our vacations to Disneyland instead of Europe. But Claire had everything she needed. She had parents who loved her more than anything in the world. Claire was crying now, tears running down her face, ruining her makeup. 2 years ago, Margaret died. pancreatic cancer. Before she passed, she made me promise something. She made me promise that Claire would have the wedding of her dreams, that we wouldn't skimp, that we'd give her something beautiful. So, I promised. I pulled out my phone, opened it to my banking app. This wedding cost $75,000. The venue, the food, the flowers, the band, the photographer, the dress, all of it. I held up my phone, though no one could see the screen from a distance, but the gesture was enough. I've been a mechanic for 40 years. I don't make the kind of money that the Hammonds make, but I took out loans. I mortgaged my house again. I worked extra shifts, weekends, holidays, because I made a promise to my dying wife. The room was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop, and I was happy to do it. I continued. I was honored to do it because that's what fathers do. We sacrifice, we work, we provide, and we don't ask for recognition or credit. I look directly at Robert Hammond now, but we also don't deserve to be erased. Patricia's face was red. Robert looked stunned, and Claire was sobbing. I've heard at least a dozen people tonight congratulate the Hammonds on this beautiful wedding. I've heard people marvel at their generosity, and not once did I hear my name mentioned. Not once did anyone think to ask who paid for the 10,000 worth of flowers, or the 15,000 band, or the 45,000 venue. I turned to look at Claire. I sat at table 18. I watched another man walk you down the aisle. I watched another man dance with you for the father-daughter dance. And I heard you tell your friends that I left early. Dad, she choked out, reaching toward me. I'm not saying this to embarrass you, I said, and I felt tears on my own cheeks now. I'm saying this because you need to hear it, because your mother is gone and she can't tell you, so I have to. I gestured around the room. All of this means nothing if it's built on a lie. If you're ashamed of where you came from, if you're ashamed of the people who loved you and sacrificed for you, then all this beauty is just hollow. I set the microphone back on its stand. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I did this for you because I loved you, because your mother loved you. But I won't be erased. I won't be hidden. I won't be the embarrassing secret you keep from your new family. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was the check for 45,000 and the down payment on their house. I walked over to the head table and set it in front of Claire. This was going to be your wedding gift, I said quietly. Just for her. But I think maybe you need to earn it yourselves. Build something real, something honest. Not something paid for with other people's sacrifices that you pretend never happened. Claire was reaching for me, saying, Dad, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I stepped back. I looked at the room full of people all staring at me. Congratulations to the happy couple, I said. I hope you have a wonderful marriage. I really do, but I think I'm going to leave now. Turns out I'm actually very tired. I walked toward the exit. No one tried to stop me. The room was still silent except for Claire's sobs and the sound of my footsteps on the polished floor. I made it to my truck in the parking lot before I broke down. I sat in the driver's seat, my head on the steering wheel, and cried harder than I had since Margaret died. Cried for the little girl who used to sit on my shoulders. Cried for the daughter I'd raised alone after Margaret died. Cried for the promise I'd kept, even though it didn't turn out the way I'd imagined. I drove home in the dark. The house was quiet and empty, the way it always was now. Margaret's photo was still on the dresser. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at it. Well, Maggie, I said, I kept my promise. She got her beautiful wedding. It just didn't end the way we thought it would. My phone was ringing over and over. I turned it off. I don't know what happened at the wedding after I left. I assume they continued. The band probably played. People probably danced. The cake was probably cut. Life went on. 3 days later, Claire came to the house. I was in the garage working on a carburetor when I heard her car pull up. I didn't stop working. She came in and stood in the doorway, just like she used to when she was a kid. Dad, she said. I kept my eyes on the carburetor. Your dress get cleaned, okay? Dad, please look at me. I put down my tools and looked at her. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I don't even know where to start. I waited. You were right about everything. I was ashamed. Not of you exactly, but of what people would think. James' family is so wealthy, and his friends and everyone in his world, and I just wanted to fit in so badly. I wanted them to see me as belonging there. And you thought I would make you not belong, I said quietly. Yes, she whispered. And that makes me a terrible person. You worked so hard. You gave up so much. And I repaid you by hiding you, by lying about you. She came closer. After you left, Patricia tried to salvage things, keep the party going, but James pulled me aside. He told me that what just happened was the most real thing about the whole wedding. He said he'd been feeling sick about it too. About taking credit for things his parents paid for, about this whole charade. He said, if we were going to start our marriage, we needed to start it honestly. I raised my eyebrows. Smart kid. We gave back the check his parents wrote for the house, she said. We're going to save up ourselves, get something smaller, something we can afford. We returned the honeymoon tickets to Tuscany. We're going to drive up the coast instead, stay in little motel. That sounds nice, I said. Dad, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I hurt you in a way that's going to take a long time to heal, if it ever does. But I want to try. I want to be the daughter you and Mom raised me to be. Not some fake version trying to impress people who don't actually care about me. I looked at my daughter standing in my garage in her jeans and old sweatshirt, no makeup, her hair in a ponytail. She looked more like herself than she had in months. Come here, I said. She rushed forward and hugged me tight like she used to. We stood there for a long time, both of us crying. Your mother would still be proud of you, I finally said. You made a mistake. You're owning up to it. You're fixing it. That's what matters. What about you? She asked. Are you proud of me? I pulled back and looked at her. Ask me again in a year. After you've lived honestly for a while, after you've remembered where you came from, then I'll tell you. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That's fair. But Claire, I said, I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Even when I was angry, even when I was hurt. You're my daughter. Nothing changes that. I love you too, Dad. So much. She comes by most Sundays now. Sometimes James comes with her, and he's a good kid. I've realized the pressure of living up to his family's expectations was crushing him too. They're renting a small apartment in Carlsbad, saving money, learning to live within their means. Last Sunday, Claire brought me a photo from the wedding. It was one of the last ones taken before I gave my speech. In it, I'm sitting at table 18, and I'm looking toward the head table where Claire is laughing. The photographer captured my expression perfectly. Love and pain all mixed together. I want you to have this, she said. So, you remember that even when I was at my worst, you loved me anyway. And so, I remember to never take that for granted again. I put it on the dresser next to Margaret's photo. Sometimes I think about that night, about whether I did the right thing. I disrupted my daughter's wedding. I made a scene. I aired our private business in front of 150 people. But I also told the truth. I stood up for myself and for Margaret's memory. I refused to be erased. And sometimes standing up means being uncomfortable. It means risking the relationship. It means saying the thing that needs to be said, even when it's hard. I kept my promise to Margaret. Claire had her beautiful wedding. It just took a little longer for the beauty to show up. Not in the flowers or the venue or the designer dress, but in the honesty that came after. In the rebuilding, in Claire remembering who she really is. That's the thing about promises. Sometimes you keep them in ways you never expected. Sometimes the beautiful moment isn't the one you planned for. Sometimes it's the hard conversation afterward. The tears, the forgiveness, the slow rebuilding of trust. I'm back at work at the garage. Claire stops by sometimes on her lunch break to bring me coffee. She introduces me to her co-workers now proudly. This is my dad. He's a mechanic. Best in San Diego County. And that 45,000 check, it's still in my safe. Maybe one day when Claire and James have saved up enough on their own, when they've proven they can build something honestly, I'll surprise them with it. Or maybe I'll use it to take a trip to a place Margaret always wanted to go. Either way, I'll make that choice freely, not because I'm trying to buy love or acceptance, but because I want to. That's the thing about being proud of who you are and where you come from. When you stand firm in that, you don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to let other people write your story. I'm David. I'm 62 years old. I'm a mechanic. I'm a widower, I'm a father, and I'm proud of every single one of those